We have now looked at several tools that will help us set up our spreadsheet correctly before printing. There are still a few small issues that we might need to look at though. If I go one page to the right, we can no longer see which order number this data relates to. And what's worse, if I page down, we now have no headings at all, and it's very hard to understand what these values actually represent. Let's go back, so I'm going to press Control Home and see how we can solve this problem. You may recall we used freeze panes in week 1 to allow us to still see the headings when we scroll through a large workbook. Well, we would like to use something similar, but for printing. Freeze panes won't work for printing, but we do have a tool that will. If we come back to our Page Layout tab and come to the Page Setup group, the tool we want is Print Titles. I'm going to click on Print Titles, and the first option it offers us is to set a print area. That's not going to solve our immediate problem, but it's interesting. So let's see what that does. I'm going to click in Print Area, and I'm going to come back into my workbook and just select a fairly randomly selected small area, and then say OK. If you look closely, you'll see thin black lines now around the area I selected. If I go to my print preview, and I'm just going to press Control P, you can see although it says print active sheets, not selection, it is only printing the print area. So this is really useful if you typically only print part of the workbook. Now that's not really what we want here. So I'm going to go back and we're going to go into our print titles again. I'm going to clear that print area, and if you have a little look up into your ribbon, you'll notice there's a print area button there that will allow you to do the same thing. Now what we actually want is rows to repeat at top. Now to set those, we're going to come back into the workbook, come over to our row numbers and click and drag to select the row numbers we wish to repeat. You can repeat rows or columns or both. We would like to also repeat our first column. So I'm going to click in here and select column A. Now there are some other options that we should quickly look at. You can choose to print grid lines. You can go for black and white if you have a color printer. You can go for draft quality, which basically saves ink, particularly if you're printing a large workbook. Row and column headings, perhaps not what you think. That's the ABC 1, 2, 3, 4 column headers, which we don't typically print. We haven't looked at comments yet, but keep in the back of your mind when we do that you can choose to print them. And cell errors, well, we're hoping we won't have any, but if we do, we can choose to print them as blank or a couple of dashes instead of having the errors show in our printouts. And finally, you can choose your page order. By default, Excel goes down and then across. But if I want my page to the right to be page 2 rather than page 26, I can choose over and then down. I'm now going to press OK. And when I come back into my workbook, it doesn't look much different, but when I scroll one to the right, much better. I can now see my order numbers and my shipping data heading. And when I go a page down, fantastic. Problem solved. I can see all my headings and my data makes perfect sense. So that was the Print Titles tool. Get in there and have a play with it.